Well, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, everybody from wherever you are on planet Earth. We're back here with another press conference reaction. Daniel Farke has just done his last press conference of the season. It feels absolutely mental to say that, doesn't it? Farke's last press conference of a 46 game season, of which we're not even including the cup competitions, of which Leeds did all right in one of them. And it has just been a enthralling, exhausting, exuberating, any more alliteration, Connor, season. It has been nuts, and I'm exhausted. I'm sure you guys are exhausted. The Euros is around the corner, which I think we're all keeping a bit of an eye on, but primary focus right now is club over country. As always, it is Leeds United. It is Leeds United zone. The red zone or the green zone, who knows where Leeds United are going to end up. But Daniel Farke has had his press conference, and I wanted to get into a few things with you guys. So make sure you're slapping a like on the video. Make sure you subscribe to the Leeds Fan Channel. You want some bonus content? Patreon is available, everybody. And let's get into it, shall we? So Farke was discussing Leeds United at the pre Wembley press conference. He said, we're pretty focused and concentrated. We know it's a decisive game, but it's important to stay calm and balanced. We're highly motivated, exactly like our opponent. And he said it's a 50-50 game. Now, it's interesting when it comes to Farke saying it's a 50-50 game, whether or not that's just respect to Russell Martin and respect to Southampton. He seems to understand how good they are. And we mentioned it on a previous video. Kyle Walker-Peters, Bednarek, Taylor Harwood-Bellis, Jack Stevens, Ryan Manning, the midfield, which is arguably the best midfield in the division, even when you include the top two. Obviously, the strikers who are good. Is Ross Stewart going to be available? I think it's mind games, to be honest, from Martin. I think there is going to be probably an inclusion of the Scotsman. Che Adams is a bit more touch and go, but he's probably going to be on the bench. And obviously, Adam Armstrong, Brooks in there as well. Listen, there's an argument they've underachieved this season. I think Farke knows that when you look at the balance of the squad, but the calibre and the quality of the squad, it is a very, very good side, which when you're looking at calibre of side as well, there is an argument it's as good as Leicester's when you look at just general squad depth. It is very, very, very good. We've not even spoken about Adozie, who was on fire earlier on in the season, obviously on loan from Manchester City. He doesn't even get a mention anymore. I was looking at the bench when it was at the West Bromwich Albion game. They've still got Ryan Fraser on there. The interesting thing for me is going to be Nonto versus Ryan Manning. I think Leeds got decent joy down Ryan Manning's side in the press conference in the game previously, I should say, at Ellen Road, where Leeds were just abject. They were absolved of any sort of confidence in that game, and momentum as well were really poor. But that is one thing to make a sort of specification on where Leeds can do something. My prediction is that Somerville doesn't really get into this game, and as per 2 games this season, Kyle Walker-Peters, who is in team of the season, probably snuffs him out. I think a lot of the joy that Leeds United are going to have to get from this game is going to be the key battle, which is between Willian Gnonto and Ryan Manning. I think on that left-hand side for them is where they are considerably weak, and Ryan Manning doesn't have the turn of pace that Willian Gnonto has. Now, the key decision is going to be, does Fraser go back there? Fraser played fullback for a full season at Bournemouth, which a lot of people forget. That's pace versus pace when it comes to Willian Gnonto. There is an argument defensively. Ryan Fraser would obviously struggle going back on himself. However, getting forward, being another attacking presence with Leeds United's sort of defensive structure at this minute, which I know we've had 2 clean sheets, but it was an awful, awful Norwich performance at Ellen Road. Excellent by Leeds United, but I am still a little bit on the fence of how good this Leeds United structure is at the back at this moment in time. Was it just game state against Norwich, because they offered 3 shots on target throughout the whole sort of 180 minutes, or are Leeds actually back to the best when it comes to a defensive structure? I think the thing is with Southampton is when we've played them twice, we've looked like a sieve at the back. They've just been able to pot holes and get through us very, very easily. So that's one thing to take into consideration. It's how are they going to structure and frame up against Leeds United's Arsenal? Are they going to put someone like Ryan Fraser against Willian Gnonto, an individual battle? Now, there are individual battles throughout the pitch as well. I think the key one is going to be Flynn Downs, because if when he's been back, Southampton have been unbelievable, and he is the orchestrator, the conductor, the anchor in that midfield, and he enables Will Smallbone, he enables Joe Rebo to get forward, and they're a real physical presence in that midfield, and they've dominated a lot of teams in midfield, not just Leeds United, but he gives them that availability in that sort of more defensive pivot to enable a Rebo and Smallbone to get forward. That is going to be a big problem for Leeds to solve. Now, if we aren't going to change to a 4-3-3, if we're not going to have 3 bodies in there, how do we avoid Gruev and Kamara not getting swamped and overloaded, which has happened in 2 consecutive games against Southampton? The midfield battle has been lost So Daniel Farke strategically needs to figure out a way Leeds United are going to get beyond that, because the midfield, if it is lost, Leeds will lose the game, in my opinion. So do you bring Jorginho Rutter back and ask him to play a little bit deeper so we can almost pick up on Flynn Downs? Flynn Downs will likely follow Jorginho Rutter around the pitch, but get forward himself as well. In that scenario, can he be a little bit too preoccupied with Jorginho Rutter so Leeds can see other successes? And it's going to be just a man-for-man battle there. The difference is, really bravely, actually, at Ellen Road, on the back of 3 losses on the bounce, Russell Martin decided to change and pivot his formation up from a 4 at the back to a 3 in the back, and then went out of possession to a 5 at the back. They went to a 3-5-2, which enabled, obviously, the 3 solid centre-backs to go at the back: Howard Bellis, Bednarek, and Jack Stevens. And then it obviously gave Southampton the ability to push their full-backs up to aid with that midfield 3, but also the 2 going up top as well. That is something strategically Leeds have to figure out. Now, where we can hurt them is if we are quick, if we are dynamic and fluid in our passing, if they have got 3 at the back and we get Somerville and Nonto going forward and doing stuff on that side, that is where we can hurt them in transition. You know, if it is sort of a 3v3 or a 4v3 in Southampton, have maybe pushed a centre-back forward or pushed a full-back forward, that's where we can hurt them. So that's something to take into consideration as well. Farke has confirmed that Patrick Bamford won't be fit for the final. Byram is back in training, and they've had a few issues indicating none of it will affect Sunday's squad. I don't really see the point in Daniel Farke saying there's a few issues. Like, it's not going to help anyone saying that. It's almost just like, I don't know, I'm parking a little bit of an excuse there if we do lose the final. I don't really understand that. Just leave it. Look, Byram and Bamford are not going to be available for this one, likelihood. Byram, I don't really mind, because I don't think he's got the fortitude to be able to keep up in a game like this. I think his pressing instincts are going to be absolutely hammered if we are to press a little bit high. I think his defensive instincts are average, to be honest with you. I think, don't get me wrong, he'll put in a big tackle here and there, but I still think he can be caught out of position, and he can be 100% paced by a quick winger and a tricky winger. He falls to the ground a lot, Sam Byram, and it can work, but it can also work against him. I'd much rather have steady presences at the back, to be honest with you. So looks like Byram's not going to be there. Bamford, I'm more bothered about in terms of experience. I don't think he'll start in front of Joel Peru in this game. I will say, with Patrick Bamford, that spearheading that attack and the off the ball work he does is decent. But we always come back to streaky Bamford. Goal tallies, availability, and dependability. Availability and dependability is the highest attribute in football, the most important attribute in football. Unfortunately, he doesn't have that in his arsenal, and he doesn't exactly have a sort of proficient goal scoring record in 2024, really, when you're looking at the stats. And a lot of that is down to him not being available and, taking his chances as well. He's been decent, Bamford, but there is a little bit of the hype gang who are pretty much, they're back to the normal Bamford lovers who are saying he's almost like R9 in the Championship. It's not been like that. So I don't really mind Joel Peru, especially after the performance he put in the other day, which showed to me that he can do much more. I've not seen anything in Joel Peru beforehand in terms of leading that Leeds United side, spearheading like Patrick Bamford does, that number 9 position. And the beautiful thing about it was he was against physical players. He was against Duffy. He was against Gibson. Big players who can really put him on the back foot, really, and put him on his arse as well. But the deft touches, the lovely turns were a big part of his game as well. And I thought he was physical. The problem is, in this game in particular, especially with Leeds United trying to figure out their midfield a little bit more, Leeds are probably going to be pushed back, especially because they're a possession-based side. Now, if they are pushed back, there is a likelihood, and we did see this at the game at Ellen Road, that is going to be Joel Peru up against Taylor Harwood-Bellis, Bednarek, and Stevens, because I think they are going to go to a 3 at the backs. They've been much better Leeds game onwards, obviously, and in the playoffs with 3 at the back. So that's something to take into consideration. Joel Peru might have an additional centre-back on him for this game in particular as well. And when you looked at Gibson and Duffy, they were being absolutely torn all over the place. And I just think that Russell Martin, Southampton, are going to have a much more disciplined approach against Leeds United at the back. I think they're relatively strong. Farke on whether he'll stick with the lineup which hammered Norwich. I won't speak about the starting lineup, but during the playoffs, we found our rhythm. In the second game, we found it, and we returned to our best. So, yeah, he's not going to change. He's not going to change. I think we are going to see a 4-2-3-1. I'd be really surprised if he threw Roberts in, or if he went to a 4-3-3 and chucked Archie Gray in the midfield. I can see why that would work, because it would give Leeds more of a defensive structure. It would probably aid us more in different respects in terms of matching them up in the midfield. But I think the problem is, I think Leeds are going to have to enable Southampton to win the midfield battle. I think because Jorginho Rutter needs to be part of a front 4, and Leeds are better with that front 4, fit, firing, and being dynamic and being, profiting in those offensive areas. I think Jorginho Rutter almost has to join the front three. So we are going to be exposed in the midfield. I believe that they will win the midfield battle. And contrary to what I said earlier, Leeds can win the game. Even if they win the midfield battle, we've just got to outscore them. And that might lead it to it being a more expansive game. And I've seen people talking about 4-3s and 3-2s. That might align with that. He said about Southampton, they're one of the best sides in the Championship. They've got experience and a classy coach. The club is not nervous. It's difficult to beat them. This was proven in the first 2 games. It's interesting when he says a classy coach because Russell Martin doesn't like him. And that is backed up by several Norwich players in the dressing room. Guess who? 2 of which used to be Leeds United players who have both backed this up. Russell Martin does not like Daniel Farke, and I think that adds a little bit of spice to this as well, because this is going to be a big one for Russell Martin. Let's hope for Daniel Farke it is as well. He spoke about rituals are always good, so we'll stick to our usual processes. Says they might take an early visit to Wembley on Sunday, but yet to decide. It'll be normal preparation, nothing too special. And I think that's good. I think as well, the good thing that we've seen throughout this week is Leeds did a media day on Monday, which I think helped. It detracts the attention away from, doing the media day closer to the time and, emotions getting involved, adrenaline being too high, having that catastrophe theory going down in terms of mentality because of that adrenaline dump. I think right now Leeds are in a good space with doing that. I think the PR idea of doing it earlier on in the week will help the side, especially a younger side. And as Cooper said, we've got to hang on to the fact that this is going to be a fearless Leeds United side. If it is fearless, if they haven't harboured any of that previous with Southampton, I thoroughly expect Leeds United to go out there and give the best account of themselves possible. But I think you almost have to have that Rutter incorporation with that front three to be able to get the best out of Leeds. But naturally, that is going to imbalance us with their 3 as well going forward and overwhelming Gruev and Kamara. So it's what do you do? The yin or the yang. You got to play to Leeds' benefits, which is the 4-2-3-1 overall this season. But the 3-5-2 of Southampton has worked absolutely perfectly well this season and been a big, big problem. Guys, that's been an absolute pleasure from me. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'll see you tonight. Cheers.